Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Premier Football Podcast on PFP Media. As always, I'm your host, joined by my good friend Joe Doherty. Joe, how are you getting on this Monday morning?
It's a very happy Monday morning, Rafe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Before we get into the football, I know we like to start with funny stories. So I've got one for you here. It's not to do with my personal life, but it's got something to do with football Twitter, a place that I find myself spending more and more of my time. You're aware of the former Manchester United and current Lyon player Memphis Depay, are you? I'm not sure if you've heard this story.
I am very much aware of Memphis Depay, yeah.
So
but I haven't heard this story.
Last week he trademarked his forename Memphis. He trademarked it or copyrighted it, so that it now belongs to him. So any Twitter account that was tweeting the word Memphis automatically had their account suspended. Bear in mind that Memphis is the capital city of Tennessee. It appears in many popular song lyrics, and it's also a name that can be given to people. But yeah, anybody tweeting the word Memphis over the weekend had their account instantly banned by Twitter.
I think that's a really productive use of his time and money to trademark his own name, not just the username, but the name. Is that correct? Like it's not just the
it's
username,
not
the
at
at Memphis.
It's just the word Memphis.
Wow.
So if you put up a tweet saying it's a sunny day in Memphis, you would have your account instantly suspended.
That is quite something.
I'm just wondering, do you plan on trademarking the name Joseph at all at any stage?
No, I don't, Rafe. It's far too common a name to be trademarking. Just like Memphis is far too common a name to be trademarking. I certainly understand, trademarking for his brand, but in terms of Twitter, I suppose he wants to be the only, like, if someone searches for Memphis.
I think there may have been some sort of bug on the.
I think them.
The app that it was registered as a trademark and it didn't pick up any other context that it was being used.
I'm reading it was a bug, yeah.
There were several troll Twitter accounts posting pictures of his famous lion tattoo on his back being like, can you name the footballer? And then in the replies there would literally just be hundreds of unavailable tweets because all of the accounts had been banned. It was ruthless stuff over the weekend.
That's hilarious, actually. So, and I haven't been spending enough time on football Twitter. I know
Joe, there's no such thing as enough time on football Twitter. There's only too much time. It's not a productive use of people's time.
It's really not. I know, because I used to spend a lot of my time on football Twitter and much more productive now that I don't.
Well, look, onto football real life. Obviously, the game of the weekend, the North London derby, Joe, the big news before the game was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was dropped to the bench for disciplinary reasons. Speculation that it could be to do with breaking lockdown protocol to get a tattoo or potentially that he was late to the game. It didn't matter in the end, though. Arsenal ran out comfortable 3-1 winners after a potential goal of the season from Eric Lamela before he was untimely sent off, having only come on as a substitute. This game seemed to have it all, Joe. Do you want to tell me a bit more about it?
It was the best description, I think, was summed up by the Guardian's features writer Barney Ronnie, who is just absolutely wonderful. He's often on Football Weekly, which is obviously one of our favorite, if not our favorite, football podcasts. And his headline was Mourinho's plan of sitting deep and winning with Rabona comes unstuck. And that literally sums up the performance perfectly. I mean, Spurs arrived 7 points ahead of Arsenal. If they'd have won, they would have been joint fourth with Chelsea with a game in hand, and they would have been 10 points ahead of Arsenal. And they started with a front four of Harry Kane, Gareth Bale on the right, Son on the left, and Lucas Moura in behind, not so much playing as a number 10, but playing as a second striker.
This front four that I've been talking up for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I remember a few weeks ago saying that they wouldn't come and play with these front four in the North London derby, but they did. However, they played exactly how I said they would play. It was a pathetic performance from Spurs. They only turned it on after Lamela had been sent off, and at that point Arsenal decided that they were going to try to draw the game themselves, and Spurs perhaps should have, if it weren't for a very good headed block from Gabriel, they would have equalized. But for the most part of the game, they were abject. I mean, they had one shot by the 60th minute, and that was Lamela's goal. Arsenal hit the woodwork twice. Arsenal, like Lacazette, had so many easy chances that he was just slicing. There was one where it was pulled back to him on the 6-yard box, and he sliced it, and it ended up going behind him. Like it went out towards the corner flag, but it ending up behind where he had struck it from. It was just he did not have his shooting boots on. I'm glad he took away the penalty, but
he struck another ball like that before he was clattered to win the penalty. And that's something that I want to talk to you about, because look, when I saw it straight away, I thought that's a penalty. It's an incredibly clumsy tackle from Davinson Sanchez. But how often do we see penalties awarded for follow-throughs on players who have managed to get their shot away? I mean, almost every game you watch, a striker gets clattered after he takes a shot on goal. It's not the kind of thing that we often see given.
Man, what happens if you're picking up the ball in the centre of midfield and you spray pass wide left,
anywhere,
and then
else
I
on the
come
pitch
in and take you out? I mean, it's an easy decision for me. That was 100% a penalty, and the crew that Sky Sports had in the studio was the most pathetic bunch I have ever seen on a panel. It was awful punditry, gutter stuff. They are the leading football network in the world. I know that they don't just do football, but their football is the best. It's the creme de la creme. And they had Jamie Redknapp, Michael Dawson, and Freddie Lundberg on. And I thought Freddie Lundberg was pathetic. He just joined the crowd and said exactly what the other two were saying. And he showed a real lack of character and a lack of convictions to just go along with what the Spurs guys were saying. And they were talking some amount of rubbish as well, because that was one of the most clear-cut penalties and clear-cut red card decisions I think you're ever likely to see. And Lundberg was saying that if he was a winger, he would go in and challenge. Like, no, you wouldn't. You don't go in and challenge with your arm up like that and push it into someone's face, because you're liable to get a red card, not just a yellow. I don't think it was a red card. I think it was a second yellow, but you are putting yourself at risk to get sent off when you put your arm in someone's face.
Yeah, and with the card, like you said, he had been asking for a second yellow card all day, or for a first yellow card. So
he'd been begging for it. He was asking. He really was.
I don't think there'll be too many people. Like, it's always very difficult to dispute 2 yellow cards, because I mean, they don't have to necessarily be major offences. I think Harry Kane was lucky to get away with something similar.
He was, and again, and it's not talked about. Match of the Day didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about it in the Sky Sports studio. I mean, we're talking about it now, but I just think that every time Harry Kane is involved in, this is a fact as well, every time he is involved, it's the same with him backing in to defenders. It just goes unsaid. No one mentions it in mainstream media.
Go back to the initial question though of the penalty. Do you like? When I thought penalty straight away. But do you think we should see more penalties for fouls inside the box? Last week in the Champions League, I think we saw PSG win a penalty against Barcelona for an accidental trip on the edge of the box, similar to the Luiz one. You know, are we getting to the stage now where anything that can be considered a foul in the box has to be given as a penalty, even if it's not the kind of thing we would have traditionally seen given as a penalty?
That's a good question.
Because VAR has become very matter of fact.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the referee gave a penalty anyway. VAR agreed, but the referee gave a penalty anyway. I mean, this was clear cut. He clattered him. This wasn't a small trip or a tiny bit of contact or questionable contact. He barred him over. He mistimed his. I mean, I thought he was quite lucky to stay on the pitch. He was last man. I know that Lacazette wasn't in a years gone by. He could, before the rules changed, if you're last man and you commit a foul like that, you're off. I know that Lacazette was no longer in a goal scoring opportunity because he'd misconnected with the ball, but.
It was a high tackle. The studs were up. It was nasty.
I wonder what Jamie Redknapp would have been saying if that had been David Luiz going into Harry Kane in the box.
I'm sure that every team has one of those this season where they say, oh, well, you know, if that's a penalty, then this should have been as well. I mean, my mind goes back to Sadio Mane getting clattered against Burnley after he skied one over the bar. I think a slide tackle came in from loading and cleared him out, took his ankles out from underneath him. And at the time you go, well, look, you don't tend to get those, it's one of those ones that the referees just don't give. It's a free anywhere else on the pitch. But do you think that the way the game is going, these things are becoming that we'll see more penalties given for this kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. And we've seen similar situations with the handball law, of course, which has been changed again a little bit recently, but they are getting much more strict with these misdemeanors in the penalty area.
Okay, what does this mean now for Arsenal? Because Arsenal are 2 points off Liverpool, something I did not think that we would be saying at Christmas when Arsenal were hovering above the drop zone and Liverpool were sitting on top of the table. This must be one of the biggest swings in terms of two teams at either end of the table coming close together. If Liverpool are still in contention for the top 4 places, which most Liverpool fans will tell you they are Arsenal still in contention?
I mean, Arsenal have an outside chance. They have a lot to do. There's been a lot of progress since the win against Chelsea, but it's been stalled progress because of individual errors, and Arsenal haven't picked up nearly as many points as they should have done, and that's their own fault because those individual errors are really poor and very costly. I think the most important thing for Arsenal is to keep on putting in performances, and if I'm honest, I would be wanting to focus primarily on the Europa League. I think you're getting to the stage of the season where games are coming, thick and fast. You're having to decide which competition to prioritize. I think Liverpool will be in a similar situation with the Champions League, given that they have a thin squad. And I think that Liverpool will prioritize the Champions League.
If Liverpool don't pick up 3 points tonight against Wolves, I think that'll certainly be the case. I think we saw them prioritizing the fixture last week against Fulham. We saw them put out a changed team, and I'd imagine they'll put out a full strength team tonight, obviously knowing that the international break is coming up. But on the backside of that, if they do go down today, it'll be all about the European competition. Who's left in the Europa League? Obviously, Manchester United are playing AC Milan. One of those teams is going out. Steven Gerrard's Rangers are looking very good. Arsenal are still there. Who else would fancy themselves at winning it?
Obviously, Spurs would. Jose Mourinho would always fancy himself in a European competition. Unai Emery's Villarreal have 1 foot in the quarterfinals as well. I think you're looking at. I think you're looking at least one English team in the final, and to be honest, I'm firmly back on English. I would love if Arsenal get to play. Do you know what? I fancy Arsenal to beat either Spurs or United. I know United are second in the league, but I've seen nothing when United and Arsenal have played in the past 5 years to suggest that. And I think the results stack up in Arsenal's favour in that time period as well. Certainly in the last 3 years, and the same with Spurs. I saw nothing yesterday to suggest that Spurs would beat Arsenal in a one-off game.
We don't talk a lot about Scottish football on this show, but Steven Gerrard has obviously won the Scottish Premier League with Rangers. They've gone undefeated for the season. They've got an incredible defensive record. How comparable is that kind of form? How easy is it to judge them and compare them to teams in England?
Well, I think that what really stands out is their form in the Europa League, because they don't have the same sort of budget as a lot of the other teams who are at this stage in the Europa League. Certainly in terms of AC Milan, the 3 English clubs, and Villarreal, they don't have the same sort of budget at all. Even the likes of Olympiacos, they're much more established club than Rangers. What they're doing in Scotland is great, but the Scottish League is very poor. Celtic's time is up. They've had a very bad season. So if Rangers, the way that Rangers have capitalized this season is extremely impressive, and perhaps you wouldn't have expected them to be quite so far ahead. But as Celtic are slipping away, you would really expect Rangers, because they've been on the ascent, to overtake them. So that doesn't surprise me. Maybe surprises me that they're so far ahead in the SPL. But it's their form in the Europa League, because Celtic haven't done anything in Europe for years. They're barely getting out of the group stages when they're in the Europa League. Certainly never getting out of the group stages in the Champions League.
That big night against Barcelona, but that was 7 or 8 years ago at this stage now, if not longer.
Yeah, it was a long time ago now. The last time I remember them getting out of the group in the Champions League would be when did they play Liverpool one season?
not for
I
a
mean, this would
very
be
long
going
time.
back years, like 2004 or something like that, when Martin O'Neill was manager. They had it, that Henrik Larsson was playing up front with Chris Sutton or John Hartson, and they were pretty good.
That was
But yeah, no, this
potentially
is
even the UEFA Cup.
was that maybe even the UEFA Cup, right? That is a long time ago. But I mean, this is probably this is the best Scottish team that we've seen in a very long time.
Yes, but you don't think that
Because
they're
of the
good.
European.
You don't think they'll make the Europa League final?
No, I don't. Because to make the Europa League final, they'll have to beat one of Manchester United, Arsenal, or Spurs, and they
Well,
won't.
there's no guarantee that Manchester United get past AC Milan. At the
There's
moment,
not.
it's
I
advantage
was
Milan.
I was obviously very pleasantly surprised, as I'm sure you were as well, to see that result. Not that we have any great affinity towards AC Milan, but I certainly don't. I've never liked them as a club.
No.
But it'd be great to see United go out, obviously.
Okay, well, look, back to England, back to the Premier League. It was a weekend where lots of teams up the top seemed to be dropping points for the second weekend in a row. Chelsea, West Ham, Everton, Spurs from 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th all drop points over the weekend. Everton lose again for the second week in a row. After we were talking up Carlo Ancelotti as a Premier League winning manager, and this experience he has.
If I can't believe it, like if Arsenal, Liverpool, and Spurs hadn't been so, especially Arsenal, Liverpool hadn't been so poor, so poor runs, such bad runs. Like the two worst runs this season, apart from Sheffield United, have been from Arsenal in the first half of the season and Liverpool just recently.
In the middle half, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. The post-Christmas, the New Year blues, whatever it is. Is what Everton are doing that fantastic? I think probably not. I don't know. I think what West Ham is doing is much more commendable for sure. That's some real success. Everton spend a lot of money. Everton have spent a lot of money for a long time. They have an extremely competent manager. They have a pretty good squad.
Everton were 2-0 down at home against Burnley within 25 minutes. And I know the home thing doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And they did make a few changes. Iwobi started, Tom Davies started, Andre Gomez started, Holgate started at right back, Godfrey started as a central defender. There were changes made to that team. And is that the thing with Everton? The squad just isn't big enough to deal with playing a couple of games a week.
I think that squad should be big enough. I mean, all the players you've named who've come in, they're all experienced in the Premier League, and you have to be able to rotate. You have to be able to trust your squad to rotate. I mean, some of the players that you mentioned there came in for a lot of money. Certainly in the case of Alex Iwobi, who was upwards of £30 million. Mason Holgate, he's homegrown though, isn't he? Ben Godfrey came from Norwich for £20 million, very highly rated defender. I think there's a case to be made that's rotation can be difficult because you're bringing in players who haven't been playing as much and maybe don't have the confidence because of that. But at the same time, it doesn't excuse
down the
being
bottom
2-0 down against Burnley after 25 minutes.
Yeah, sorry for cutting you off there.
Go on.
Down the bottom, that boosts Burnley up to 15th. It puts 4 points between them and Brighton. Brighton do have a game in hand, as the Newcastle, who are 2 points, 1 point off Brighton as well. Is that Burnley 33 points? What'll they need to stay up this year? Fulham are currently on 26 points after 29 games.
Yeah. I'm just looking now. If Fulham can get 12 more points, that would be 4 wins or 3 wins and 4 draws in 9 games, losing just twice. I don't know if I fancy them to get to the.
Okay, so
but then they can. I think it's a low. I think it's a low total to stay up.
Burnley are 7 points clear of the drop now, with 2 teams between them and Fulham. Are they safe?
Not yet. I think it's probably enough, because if Burnley, are Southampton in the relegation battle? you'd probably have to say that they are. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and they're on 33 points as well.
Level on points with Burnley, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge win for Burnley.
Massive.
Absolutely massive. But they need, absolutely massive. But they need more, and Sean Dyche will know that. Like, I think you're looking at.
What do you mean they still need a couple of points? Like,
yeah. It's not over yet. Like, they can't take. They have 9 games left. Man, they probably need. I mean, how many points do you think Newcastle will get in their remaining 10 games? 6? I'd say they'd be doing well to get. Do you think they'll get 9 points
from 10 games? 7, maybe 7 or 8.
Do you think they'll win?
They'll win a couple, man. They will. They do tend to win a couple. You know, they'll keep a clean sheet in one game and nick a header in the last minute or something. You know.
I think Newcastle will go down.
I think they might go down as well. To be honest,
I think they're going to go down
more than them.
Looking at it, I think Fulham will win at least 3 of their remaining 9 games. I think Fulham will win at least 3, and that's 9 points. And I think they're not going to lose. 6. Maybe they'll lose 4. I think they'll get a couple of draws as well. So you're looking at 10 points to take them to 36, and that would be Newcastle needing to get 8.
They play each other on the last day as well.
Yeah, it's a huge game.
Yeah. To go back to Burnley for just a second.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to slag you here, but I think they were one of the 3 teams that you named as one of the worst 3 Premier League teams in the history of the competition or something at the start of the season. And isn't that just testament to Sean Dyche again being able to steer this team somehow to safety?
Yeah, I suppose that it is because that's a really poor squad with no investment over a significant period of time,
for years.
Allowing their better players to leave for free. Sounds very familiar in terms of Arsenal. Very, very, very good job that he's done there. To be fair, I mean, I don't think he's an amazing manager. I don't think he'd be. I think he's probably at his level. And that's not an insult, but I mean, there's a certain type of man to do a job like that, and he does it as well as we've seen anyone do it in the Premier League. He's not. I mean, we've seen it with Sam Allardyce going to. He's that type of manager. He's the Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, Sean Dyche.
Didn't Sam Allardyce have a top 4 finish once?
No, he never had a top 4 finish.
How high did he get with Bolton?
He never got in the top 4. I think they probably finished 6th once, and they might have got into the UEFA Cup. He finished 8th with Everton after they'd been in the relegation zone. I mean, with Bolton, he really overachieved. He did very well. Then he had his spell at Blackburn. Again, I think it was kind of just mid-table stuff. Then it was Newcastle, where it was very bad. Sunderland, it was pretty, just. After that, he's just been employed to keep teams up. Apart from England, where he's the most successful manager ever in terms of
win percentage.
Win percentages, yeah.
I would throw David Moyes in with some of those managers, but I actually heard last week that after his stint at United, he took some time off and went to Germany, and he actually went around a lot of training grounds in Germany and observed a lot of sessions over there. And he worked on his own coaching skills. He went and learned more about the game. And it's the kind of thing that we don't see a lot of managers doing, especially old school traditional managers. We don't see them too keen to embrace a lot of modern philosophies. So, I mean, people will say that this is David Moyes and he's got West Ham. Yeah, they're solid and compact and they do the basics well. And of course they do. But I think there's a little bit more to it as well.
Yeah.
Because this was a team like Burnley last year that were floating around that drop zone.
If you think about, I don't know, the modern corporate sector, there has never been a bigger emphasis on upskilling in your mid-career. I'm not just talking about MBAs, but I'm talking about like doing even the area that you're in, getting a specialized professional diploma in that. I mean, every university seems to have some sort of offering these days, or online offering, just to make it, to bring yourself up to speed with what's going on in the industry, and to translate and
2 week long or weekend long business courses for example, money kind of thing
for a few grand. It's to translate that into the football world. Like you don't see, yeah, like you said, you don't see that too often. But that's obviously going on in the corporate world. I think I heard that as well, and that's very commendable for David Moyes to. I mean, because he was at a very low point in his career, Rafe.
Yeah, for
He,
sure.
he really was. He was.
I
He
mean,
really
he was
was.
laughed out of management in Spain. He was laughed out of
Mm.
management at Manchester United, and he took over that West Ham team, and just about, obviously he came back to take over that West Ham team, and he's been revitalized this summer. But I mean, if they were to start poorly this season, he would have been one of the first names facing the chop.
Yeah, of course, and we had them to struggle. I think I had them to go down.
I think we may have, we all backed him as one of the first to lose his job this season. So I mean, look, fair play to him. Speaking of dinosaurs down the bottom of the table, Roy Hodgson, he seems to have steered Crystal Palace to safety again. They move up onto 37 points after a good 1-0 win over West Brom. Look, I'm thankful I didn't waste my Saturday afternoon watching that game. Apparently, Palace were good value for their win. I've seen enough of West Brom. I don't want to watch them anymore.
Say would be. I
watched them last week, man. I did it. I sat down and they were just painful. They were rubbish.
Okay, well, man, you watched them against Newcastle. That's even worse than watching them against Crystal Palace, which is hard. I think that's the worst game of football that you could possibly put yourself through in the Premier League this season.
Okay,
honestly,
let me see if I can find a more entertaining game to talk about. Leicester, good for a change.
Yeah,
they win 5-0. Are they good, or is it just Sheffield United?
I mean, that's very impressive. 5-0. Kelechi and Iheanacho scoring a hat trick, but he's not really been in the goals for Leicester in the same way that he was for City. I remember that at one point when he was playing for City, he had the best goals to minutes ratio in the league over his time there. Yeah, exactly. When he was the super sub.
Do you know what I remember about Iheanacho?
What?
In the 2018-19 season, in one of the final games of the season, Leicester played against Manchester City, and he had an open goal to deny City the league, and he blazed it over the bar, and yeah, the title stayed on Manchester. So I don't know if Pep slipped him a few quid before that game or whatever, but I've still not forgiven him for it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you had done. What were we on about? Leicester. Yeah, I saw that after United won last night, Goldbridge tweeted, "Okay, that's second confirmed now." And I just like to point out, in contrast to that they're 1 point ahead of Leicester with 9 games left. So that's absolutely in no way second confirmed.
I think it's top 4 confirmed, Joe.
No, they don't. And I mean, I think it's fair to say that was a very fortuitous win for Manchester United last night.
You probably watched the whole thing. I only saw highlights of it.
Yeah, no, I only saw highlights of it as well.
The goal was interesting, though.
Yeah, I only really am able to watch 2 games a weekend, and I usually watch Arsenal and Spurs for 2 very different reasons. Because they were playing this weekend,
you treated yourself to the second one.
No, I treated myself to just watching 1 game.
Oh man, I've been praising Craig Dawson all season, and I cannot believe that he bullet headed one into his own goal yesterday.
Yeah. Did you see Mustafi's own goal? I think I tagged you that.
I did see Mustafi's own goal. Yeah. You have to wonder about some of these guys, man. You really do. What's going through your head?
Did you see his clearance in the first place?
Yeah.
It was an awful clearance.
Honestly, I thought that was the video, the first part.
Same with me. And he looks around like he's trying to blame the keeper.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen him do that kind of thing time in, time out for Arsenal before as well.
Far too many times. How Schalke thought that bringing him and Kolasinac in was going to help them stay up in any way, shape, or form is beyond me. No, sorry, I digress. We're on United. Man, to their credit, they keep finding a way, don't they, in the league more often than not. They have drawn a couple recently, but still, they're not really at the stage where they need to be winning every game to be guaranteed of. And what do they want this year? I'd imagine that the league is well beyond them. They'd probably want to finish second, but would it be the end of the world if they finished third? And I don't know.
Look, it's about top 4 in the Europa League, and then potentially, are they still in the FA Cup? Yeah, they are.
Okay. Are they still in the FA Cup? They probably are.
I think they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll say they are. Right. Look,
Yeah, we'll say that they
the
are.
last team up the top we want to talk about is Chelsea, who slipped up again.
Yeah.
A 0-0 result again. With when was the last time Leeds had a 0-0?
I think that the only previous 0-0 with Leeds was their home fixture against Arsenal at Ellen Road in the first half of the season.
I mean, Chelsea need to be going and winning that game if they want top four, don't they?
Hmm.
Leeds are a bottom
Yeah,
half
of course they
team.
do. Of
Leeds are
course they do. I
12th after
mean,
that.
this is. I would have thought that Leeds would be the ideal team for Chelsea to play, because Chelsea have such good players to play on the break in whatever formation that they choose to play. But that's not Tuchel's style of play, is it?
No,
He's a
it's
very
not. But
he's a very pragmatic, controlling type.
how are they going to score goals though? And this has been the issue at Chelsea for a long time, is that nobody seems to know how they're going to attack and where the goals are going to come from. I mean, the most obvious answer for me seems to be to play Olivier Giroud through the middle and kick balls at him, because he's their best
he's
striker.
not a goal scorer. He's not a goal scorer.
He gets
It's certainly not anymore. For Arsenal, he kind of was, but for man, look at his statistics for Chelsea. I'm going to pull them up now. They're really nothing to be, proud of. Just bear with me just a second. So this season so far, he has 4 and 14 in the league. Last year it was 8 in 18. The season before it was 2 in 27, and the first half season at Chelsea was 3 in 13. So that's a total of 17 goals in 72 games in the league.
Let's look at this season for a second. 4 and 14. How does that compare with the likes of Tammy Abraham, or Timo Werner? I don't know if you have.
Good. Well, Timo Werner has 5 goals.
In how many games?
That. Yeah, I'm just going into their.
I'd imagine it's more than 14. Now.
Yeah, so Timo Werner has 5 in 24.
Which is considerably worse.
Yeah, Abraham has 6 in 18.
Which is probably the best of the 3.
It is the best of the 3. I mean, this is an issue that, this goes back to... I want to say this goes back to when after Diego Costa. But even before Diego Costa, they had an issue where they had Fernando Torres, Demba Ba, and Samuel Eto'o. And neither of those 3 wanted to score goals. They all actively wanted to score single-digit figures in the league, and they all succeeded in doing that. And I mean, when you translate it, when you say, okay, 3 strikers all scoring, say 8 goals, that adds up to 24. But it's not like the same as having 1 striker who's scoring 24 goals, is it?
No, it's really not, because if you look at the combined appearances, it doesn't add up that way at all.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really not the same.
What that means for Chelsea now is that West Ham can catch them by winning their next game and knock them out of the top 4. And I mean, everybody's got tough games left. Chelsea have got 9 games left, and they're going to have to pick up more points than West Ham. They're going to have to pick up more points than Everton, who could only be 2 behind them if they win their game in hand. The same with Spurs, and again, Liverpool are only 2 points behind that. If Aston Villa win their games in hand, they're potentially only 4 points off Chelsea as well, which is probably too much to ask. But there are 3 or 4 teams all breathing down their neck, and I mean, we thought after the Liverpool game that looked like Chelsea home and hosed. But things are changing. So, man, this season, I know that I've given out about some of the quality, but I mean, it's kept us interested.
Yeah, Rafe, I think it's been the best season in a long time, and I really mean that. And to do it without fans is quite something. But perhaps has it been the best season in a long time for the wrong reasons? I mean, all credit to the likes of West Ham and Villa, although Villa have fallen off, and Villa will continue to fall off. I remember a few weeks ago you asked me where I expected Villa to go from here, and I said down the table, and I firmly believe that. I don't think they're anything special at all. They have a couple of good players, but they're not that great a team. But I mean, it's down to the big teams being inconsistent. It really is. That is the reason why you have... I mean, all credit to I think Leicester is the most commendable of all of them, because with continued smart investment over big investment, they're maintaining the levels that they were at this time last year. It's just all about them seeing that home, and I hope for their sake that they do, because they deserve it. over the last couple of years to finish in the top 4 places.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying, and I agree for Leicester that would be great for them, because I have nothing against them as a club. But while my club are breathing down their neck trying to take that place away from them, I'm definitely not gonna be wishing that they hang on to it.
I don't know how much breathing down the neck 13 points is, Rafe.
There is a bit. We can reduce that to 10 this evening. Oh man,
10 in 9 games is a tough ask, I have to say.
Yes,
I have to say
it is.
I mean, this is Brendan Rodgers, though, who is an expert in finishing seasons poorly. So there could be a pleasant surprise for you if
they
Liverpool
did blow
start
a similar
scoring goals
lead
again
against Manchester City in 2013-14, didn't they? So
yeah, 7 in 3 games, I think it was, actually.
Jeez. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Mad.
I don't know if you heard, man. I was reading this morning that while PSG were playing yesterday, 2 of the players' houses were robbed. It was something that happened to Olsen, the Everton goalkeeper, a couple of weeks ago, was held at Machete Point, and I think Di Maria's family were held to ransom yesterday as well
and Marquinhos as well.
Marquinhos as well. Yeah. Di Maria was substituted during the game and went straight to the incident. Obviously these guys are public figures, and that they earn a lot of money, but is it becoming increasingly difficult for footballers to live as part of the regular world, you know?
Yeah, of course it is, man. Look at what happened to Ozil and Kolasinac and their wives last year, being mugged at Machete Point in the street. Like, it's bad, but you wonder why it is. Is it because of the relationship between footballers and the real world, and that they're still considered part of it, and that because there's a very close relationship with fans and clubs, that there has to be some sort of relationship between players and clubs? But this is very dangerous when you consider the amount of wealth and how society will always be, some parts of society will always be towards people with extreme wealth. I don't know if you read it. This is a little bit less of a harrowing story. It's actually quite amusing. But in Milan, there was a group of burglars who were arrested, and what they did was that they scaled luxury apartment. They scaled, like, literally climbed up luxury apartment buildings
with like suction cups,
let themselves into. Yeah, I don't know how they did it, man, but the article I read was brilliant. It sounded like something out of Ocean's 11 or something like that. And they basically had been robbing, certainly Ashraf Hakimi, you know him, he's a right back. I think he plays for one of the Milan clubs,
Inter.
I think it's Inter. Yeah. And there was a couple of other well-known it wasn't just footballers, but famous people who have been robbed in this way, and they would stake out the apartments and they would literally climb up and take things. That's not quite as bad, like holding people at knife point and breaking in when, while there are people in the house, and actively causing violence or distress is really, 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 really bad. But how do you stop that? That's a really difficult thing. Private security or
well, look, I think that it'll probably get to that stage with the money that lots of footballers have. It'll become normal for them to put their house on extra protection, because the entire world knows when they're playing and when they're not going to be there. So
exactly.
Yeah. Problems that we don't have to deal with, Joe.
Yes, thankfully, Rafe.
Right, well, look, that was a cheery way to end the show.
Yeah, anyway. It was. Well, I tried to be more cheery by bringing in that Ocean's 11 type story, because I found that funny. Like, I just picturing lads climbing up really big buildings.
Not for me, man.
To steal jewelry.
Not for me. But look, guys, thanks for listening to the show this week. Anyway, be sure to join us next week for more harrowing stories of kidnapping and ransom and nasty things like that.
God, yeah, it's all happening.
We might talk about some football as well.
Yeah, we might just turn it into a true crime podcast. Who knows?
To be honest, there might be more of a market for a true crime podcast. If anybody out there would prefer to listen to me and Joe once a week talk about, true crime stories, or maybe, go read the newspaper and give our opinions, we might branch out beyond football, because
we could we could certainly branch out beyond football. We could certainly do current affairs. I think
We
that
need
that
the
would be
money. We
more
need the
interesting.
sponsorship. So I mean,
Yeah,
if anybody out there wants to hear us talk shite about anything else, I mean, you know where
you
to
would you
find
would
us.
also hear us get much more heated as well. I can guarantee that, because we do agree on a lot, but there are some things where we certainly don't agree, and we would certainly be pretty firm in our own opinions. I think it's fair to say. Is that right, Rafe?
Joe, maybe you. I don't. I take offence to that.
Well, I take offense to you taking offense to that.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? Look, anyway,
Yes.
guys, this has been PFP.
We digress.
You're such a weirdo. Look, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week. Cheers. Thanks, and goodbye.